Who can't resist a delectable, scrumptious bite of KFC's fried chicken? As soon as the meat's savoury flavour tickles your taste buds, you spontaneously utter the following words. It's finger-licking good. Or, nobody does chicken like KFC. Or maybe, so good. Kentucky Fried Chicken has ruled the world with 53,000 restaurants across 155 countries. KFC has a long history. When Colonel Sanders starts from nothing to then selling fried chicken out of a gas station, to then becoming a millionaire, Harland Sanders ended up building a giant global franchise in his late 60s. Still, the KFC story takes a twist when Colonel Sanders sells his company for specific reasons, as KFC then sues its founder. Colonel Sanders sues KFC, the company he created, demanding millions of dollars in compensation. This video will unveil many facts about this franchise, undergoing many twists and turns. I will tell you the narrative behind 11 herbs and spices created by Harland Sanders. While many people say they simply adore the taste of fried chicken, most of them are unaware of the fascinating background of this famous chicken brand. It was the early 1930s when Colonel Sanders covered the floor of his station's small storage room with linoleum, rolled in the dining room table from the living quarters he and his family occupied behind the station, and placed 6 chairs around a simple table. He also started providing family-style dinners, including fried chicken, country ham, mashed potatoes, and biscuits. A dispute with a rival led to a fatal shootout when he started to market his meals. 4 years later, he purchased a motel which, along with his restaurant, was destroyed in a fire. Nevertheless, this tenacious man constructed and operated a new motel until World War II compelled him to close it. He attempted to franchise his restaurant after the war. Before anyone accepted his dish, it had been rejected 1,009 times. Sanders launched an aggressive sales drive when his Corbin business failed, travelling from town to town through Indiana and Idaho with pressure cookers and bags of his unique spice blend. He later franchised his secret formula and procedure to a few different small eateries. Sanders relied on the fried chicken he rustled up during his sales pitches as food in order to conserve money. He slept in his car while wrapped in a wool blanket that Harmon had provided. Kentucky Fried Chicken, Sanders' secret recipe, immediately gained popularity. When an interstate opened close by, it crippled the thriving restaurant, so Sanders decided to sell it and pursue his dream of expanding KFC franchises and hiring KFC employees nationwide. "I figured I couldn't do worse than these people running these places around town," said Sanders, as recounted in John Ed Pierce's 1982 biography, The Colonel. He performed far better than worse. Eventually grew into Kentucky Fried Chicken, better known as KFC today, a multi-million-dollar fried chicken business after some extreme ups and downs. Sanders ultimately achieved success after experiencing years of setbacks and bad luck. People found the food simply delectable and heavenly. When KFC went global, he sold the business for $2 million, equivalent to $15.3 million today. Even now, Sanders is a critical component of KFC's branding, and their logo still features his face. The world continues associating wonderful country fried chicken with Colonel Sanders' new attire. Harland Sanders changed his name to Colonel Sanders, and his portrayal of a southern gentleman complete with a goatee, black string tie, and white double-breasted suit became a recognisable trademark. Customers were encouraged to eat in or order takeout with slogans like, "North America's hospitality dish," and "We fix Sunday supper 7 nights a week." KFC was successful because it developed a recognisable brand with a memorable name, and unique recipes that guaranteed customers of excellent meals every time they visited one of its outlets. KFC knew that time was money. Fast service from KFC encourages customers to use its services repeatedly because it saves them time. One of the main factors influencing KFC's success is the increased customer retention rate. KFC's success and expansion are primarily attributable to the franchise system under which it is run. Everything is documented, and strict guidelines exist for operating the business under a franchise system. The Colonel realised the business was growing too quickly for him to keep up with. Thus, he decided to sell KFC, where his issues with the company's brand started. Sanders started to vehemently disagree with the direction the new owners of KFC were taking the restaurant chain. He criticised KFC publicly, and even decided to create a competing business, which led to an expensive legal battle. Colonel Sanders' love for KFC quickly waned after the phenomenal success of his creation. After Hublin acquired the business in 1971, Sanders started calling KFC's gravy slop and its managers a bunch of booze hounds. On the other hand, although Sanders made millions from selling KFC, he quickly began to regret the move after doing so. Sanders declared that the fried chicken he had at a franchise in New York City was the worst he had ever eaten. Sanders referred to the gravy as nothing more than wallpaper paste, since it was so bad. Sanders and his wife planned to turn their new restaurant, Claudia Sanders, the Colonel's Lady Dinner House, into a chain of franchises so they could keep providing Southern-style food. But as the New York Times notes, Sanders thought Hublin was purposely obstructing his plans for a new restaurant. As a result, he sued the company for $122 million. According to BuzzFeed News, KFC strongly opposed the project, claiming ownership of the moniker, Colonel, and even Sanders' name. History reports that Sanders and Hublin reached a settlement outside of court. According to the contract, Sanders would get $1 million in addition to the chance to teach Hublin officials how to cook. Sanders had to vow to stop publicly criticising KFC in the future. And the Claudia Sanders Dinner House in Shelbyville, Kentucky is still open for business. Sanders continued to be the brand spokesperson even after selling the company. Therefore, he took the management of the company personally. People loved him everywhere, and some even stopped him from disapproving of KFC's food. Colonel Sanders' original recipe for KFC, the one he first used to cook the chicken he would sell to customers from the petrol station he ran, was pretty exceptional to the point that people started visiting that gas station just to try some of his godlike fried chicken. The only issue was that when Sanders began franchising his chicken by the bucket business, no one else could make it correctly because his recipe was too fantastic. It is evident that Sanders spent years refining the recipe and likely slaughtered thousands of chickens in the process. No franchise, no chef, and no expert could cook it up to his standards. Sanders' original recipe was altered when the brand was eventually acquired by a large corporation to boost sales and save the time required to educate cooks to make it, which infuriated Sanders to no end. Sanders would frequently visit KFC locations around the nation to see if they were making his chicken right. More often than not, he was dissatisfied. Sanders was hired by the KFC brand to work in a primarily symbolic function, thus being demoted to the mascot position. Sanders likes to surprise restaurants by showing up in his recognisable white suit, which he never took off, and placing a single chicken order. Sanders usually travelled in a big-ass white car with a golden chicken sticker. He would jump the counter and personally train the workers to correct it if he didn't like it. Imagine being a KFC employee in the 1970s and seeing the man on your logo get out of a massive automobile with a chicken on the front, stroll directly behind the counter and start dicking around. You would freak out to high heaven. Sanders publicly criticised the food offered at various franchises. As you might expect, KFC was not pleased with Sanders' comments that their food tasted terrible, so they attempted to sue him. However, it later turned out that there was no provision in Sanders' contract that forbade him from criticising KFC products because, well, after all, it was his recipe. KFC sheepishly paid Sanders $1 million to stop publicly smearing their brand after the court dismissed the case, since it looked awful. Sanders shrugged, grabbed the money, and kept on being fantastic. Sanders began fiddling with his fried chicken recipe in the kitchens of Sanders Court, as it was known, and eventually discovered 11 herbs and spices that formed a part of his secret recipe. His small gas station and the restaurant quickly gained a following of people who truly enjoyed the perfectly fried chicken. Although Leddington published his family scrapbook before many people claimed to have discovered the recipe, the Colonel himself may have made the most essential claim of all, according to the Yum brand's representative, and were reprinted by Snopes, claiming that Colonel Sanders claimed credit for a dish initially developed by a black domestic worker named Miss Childress, or Mrs. Childress depending on the source. Sanders apparently gave the Childress family $1,200 for the rights after they protested, which seems like a small sum given the restaurant chain's current $8.3 billion net worth via Forbes. The fact that a black woman created the original recipe is supported by historical data, even if there is no confirmation that Miss Childress ever existed or that $1,200 was paid via Snopes. According to the racial and socio-economic realities of early 20th century America, the Colonel alone did not come up with the recipe. According to Snopes, anyone who understood anything about the South knew that no Kentucky Colonel would have prepared the fried chicken in a Southern home. The chicken in rich Southern homes, particularly in the Colonel's era, was inevitably prepared by a black maid or family housekeeper. The COVID-19 outbreak struck, forcing all of the KFC's markets to close at once, which was the first time this had ever happened. This presented KFC with two significant challenges: how to maintain brand recognition, at the same time its doors were closed, and how to ensure that customers would return when the restaurants reopened. In order to appeal to all of KFC's customers globally with a single brand voice, KFC and its longtime creative agency partner Mother London viewed this as a critical opportunity. In the midst of the crisis, the company saw an even greater chance to advertise its well-known "It's finger-licking good" slogan, but in a manner appropriate for the time. KFC's infamous phrase was partially redacted when it unveiled its first global marketing campaign. KFC hedged their chances on leveraging weakness to attempt and warm people to the brand by utilising the pratfall effect. Keep Colonel Harland Sanders' story in mind whenever you feel discouraged or overwhelmed by rejection. Despite being fired from several jobs, having his law career destroyed, and suffering setbacks from the Great Depression, fires, and World War II, he nevertheless managed to build one of the biggest fast food chains in the world. Nothing or nobody could ever beat Sanders. Before he became famous, Sanders travelled down various roads in his decades-long and frenetic quest for the next dollar, the next job, and the subsequent success. He compared this to a weather vane that yields to each change in the wind's direction. Make sure to let us know your thoughts down below. Subscribe to the channel as a sacrifice to the gods of the algorithm. Thanks for watching.